My name is Jerry Reed. I'm a writer and my pen name is Papa Hemingway. I'm always looking for a good story. About 40 years ago, I read in a magazine about the first American soldier to step foot on Japanese soil after Nagasaki. I searched for that guy for about 40 years. A year ago at a computer seminar, I sat down next to Dick Laws, and he was wearing a Paratrooper's cap, and that opened our conversation. And I found out that Dick was the guy I'd been searching for all these years. So I'd like to introduce Dick Laws, the first man to step foot on Japanese soil after Nagasaki.
Well, I was trying to get away from you. I heard about you chasing me, but I didn't know you wanted to be friendly. I thought you was a guy that was just chasing me, you know.
Okay.
A day and be nice.
Now, we're at the Robert Arvin VFW Hall in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And as Jerry pointed out, we're interviewing Dick Laws, who was, among other things, famous for being the first man who put his feet on Japanese soil after the atomic bombs. But why don't, if we can, could we start off by telling us a little bit about how you went into the service and when you went into the service?
Oh, sure.
You joined.
Yeah, I really got mad at the Japanese when they bombed Pearl Harbor, you know. And that was in December of 41. And I was very, very busy because I had graduated from my high school, a big famous one in Detroit called Cass Tech. And immediately, and when I graduated, then I already had a job all set up. And that was door-to-door selling of baked goods for a big Allyn bakery in the city of Detroit. And the thing is that I had this, and it was all planned, you know, for a long time. And of course, I was into it for 6 months before the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor on December the 7th. And I had another job that I had to do. Otherwise, I would have rushed right out and joined up in the Army right then.
What job was that then?
Well, this was quite a little complicated, but my parents lost their house in 1933 when I was 10 years old. And we had to rent then, and that was pretty awful for people. I was raised, you know, the first 10 years in a house that my father had built, you know, with his own hands. And it was a part of our family, you know. But then, of course, the bank took it away since he lost his jobs and stuff. It's at the bottom of the big depression, you know. But anyway, we rented 3 or 4 houses, and I was making money pretty good in my bakery business. And because I worked like a devil 6 days a week, of course. And the thing is, though, that I wanted to get my parents in their own house before I went to shoot the Japs. And of course, I also had to pay for my truck. Friends of mine at Allyn Bakery bought me a brand new 1942 Ford half-ton panel truck. Brand new, and they even put my name on it.
Wow.
I think they trusted me a little. Anyway, it cost $880.
Big money then.
Big money then, that's for sure. Anyway, in 6 months I had that truck paid for, and also give most of my money to my parents. And then I had it all planned. I would get money saved up after I got my truck paid for, and put a down payment on a house for my parents. And people that we were renting a house from at that time, in fact, it was a, I forget the kind of a company, but, oh, it was a florist, that's what it was, yeah. It was a florist company, and the guy had a lot of money, and so he had a lot of houses. And he rented them. Anyway, the fellow that came around once a month, and he and I got friendly, shooting the bull a little bit, you know, because a lot of times I made the rental payments. And he told me that they were going to start selling a few houses, you know, because of the war situation. And he told me about a nice big house they had for sale, only a few blocks over. We were on Hannah Street, and Greeley was just real close over to it, you know. Anyway, I got the money together and I put it in my ma's lap one day in October of 1942. And I'm telling you, the smile that she gave me could never be surpassed. Never. She was so happy.
So then you were free to go into the Army.
Yep. And I was gonna, the family, we all moved in, I think it was about the first part of November, we moved from the one house into the one that we bought. And by the way, when I say I bought the house, I really mean that, because when I bought the house, of course I put up my mom and dad's name, but their monthly payment to buy the house was less than the rent they were paying in the other house. So it was a big deal for them too, you see. Anyway, it was all planned that we were going to have a New Year's party for me and have everybody that the family knew come to this party, and it was going to run all day and night, you know. And then, as quick as I could get my wits together, I was going to go and volunteer to be in the Army the next day or two or whatever. But the government crossed me up.
How'd they do that?
Well, because the war in Europe was starting to go downhill, of course, you know, and they knew they were going to win. And the only place they wanted troops was over in the Pacific, you know. So they needed less people volunteering. And so then they passed a rule and said, nope, you can only be, what's that word? Not volunteer, they get you. Drafted, yeah, thank you. I forget a few things here and there. And so I had to wait then, and I never got in the Army until March of '43. And in the meantime, I'd got rid of my bakery route and sold my truck. And so I didn't have a job. I was just goofing around for a couple months, you know. But anyway, then it was early March, 2nd or 3rd, something like that. And so I went into Detroit, and then they put me on a train and went to Chicago. And in Chicago, I took the big test they give you when you go in the Army. And then I had a meeting with was kind of like this meeting here. Guys were writing down stuff I wrote or that I said. And anyway, this he was a lieutenant, and he wanted me to go to OCS and become an officer. He said, "You got super good marks on your test." I said, "Well, that's just because I went to a good high school in Detroit." But I said, "I know that this war ain't gonna run forever, and I'm really mad at them Japs for bombing Pearl Harbor. And I wanna go. And I'm gonna volunteer for the paratroops as quick as I get out of Chicago or whatever you let me do." And the guy said, "Well, okay." And I says, "If you can not put me in the officers' school, but aim me at the paratroops, I'd appreciate it." He says, "Okay." And he sent me to Camp McCall in North Carolina. And so that's where they were building the 511 parachute infantry from nothing, you know. Well, they had a cadre, and met some real nice guys that were old Army guys, you know, that were helping the training of us and building the 511. And the 511 became very, very famous, you know, because we did the Los Baños raid 2 or 3 years later.
Well, tell us about that about that raid. I saw it recently on TV, but I'm sure.
Oh, did you see it on the History Channel?
I sure did.
Yeah, so did I. And I have a tape I made of it, so it's all recorded. And personally now, don't put me down as one of the people who made the raid, because they only had a rifle company make that parachute jump, see? And I was in a heavy weapons company, a headquarters company, 3rd Battalion. And I was in there all the time I was in service. They picked me right from day one when I was interviewed by the colonel and the captain, that they wanted me in the mortar platoon because they liked my build. And it wasn't very long after that that I was a head gunner in the 81 millimeter mortar platoon. But anyway, don't let me wander too far.
I'll try not to.
I know, I know you want to hear about Los Baños. Anyway, I was shooting Japs about 10 miles away from Los Baños prison.
You were in a diversionary action.
Well, we were out fighting a thing called the Genko line, Genko. The Japs had built that, and it was, I don't think they had any idea. They might have, to protect Los Baños prison. But the thing is that it's because of the pressure we were putting on that Genko line, you know, the whole rifle companies and mortars and everything else from the 511, that made the Japs come to a decision to kill all the prisoners that they had in that prison. And there was over 2,000 of them. Now, some of them were civilian people who had just gone to the Philippines on business and stuff like that. And they were grabbed and thrown in the prison by the Japs when they ran General MacArthur out. And by the way, remind me to tell you a lot of stories about General MacArthur and I, because we became very good friends.
Okay.
I mean it. Anyway, because of the pressure that we were putting on, the Japs, we heard from spies, because it was easy that they had spies go into the camp, because the Japs bought fresh vegetables and fruits and coconuts and everything else to help feed the prisoners. Not that they were good to them, they were just trying to keep them alive, you know, up until that point. But we heard that the next week they were going to kill them all. And then the Japs were going to run north and join up with the other Japs on the other side of Manila, see? So that's why the Los Baños raid went on. And they took, I always forget the name of the company, but it was one of our rifle companies, and I think they were in the 2nd Battalion. So that would have been D, E, or F. There were 3 rifle companies in each battalion. And the 1st Battalion, of course, was A, B, C. And in the 3rd Battalion that I was in headquarters company. But the rifle companies were G, H, and I. But I think it was the 2nd, maybe E or whatever. Anyway, it was pulled off really good. And what they did, they had a whole bunch of Amtraks. That is a thing, it's kind of partially fortified with heavy steel around it, you know, like a tank, but just similar. Didn't have a big cannons and stuff on it. But those things had a continuous walking thing on each side of them to go over any kind of ground, and also they were waterproof, so they could go in the water. And they went over, there was a lake called Lake Taal. That's Taal. And so a lot of these Amtraks went over there. In fact, they left the night before. Oh, I forgot to tell you. The spies told us that the Japs stacked their rifles and did exercises. In fact, they even took off most of their clothes and did all kind of exercises just in their underwear and stuff like that, you know. And they did that at 7 o'clock every single day in the morning. And so, knowing that, they planned the parachute drop for about 10 after 7. And the Amtraks took off from the south side of Lake Taal, so they were on the north side, to go across the lake at night and arrive there about 7:30. That was the plan, and they did. And the whole thing didn't last very long. And hey, the jump went on, and there was some other people came on the ground also. There were some Filipino guerrillas and a company of troops from another outfit. I forgot exactly what it was. And because I wasn't really directly involved, most of what I know is what I heard just yakking with guys, you know. Anyway, that's all true what I told you. And the fight didn't last very long.
They didn't lose many men on that either,
No,
did they?
we had one guy died, but it was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
None of the prisoners were killed. All 2,140 or 50, whatever the number is, they all survived. And I got to tell you something that's really, really nice. I started to tell you, and now I wandered off, is about the people that were in the prison. All kind of commercial people, and you know, some of our army soldiers were in there, and all kinds of things. And there was about 40 or 50 nuns in there that they had jerked out of,
Missions.
missionary places and stuff like that. And with them in there, a lot of them, you know, they would get out and walk around in the morning, you know, and they didn't know that the Japs were going to kill them or anything, you know. But some of the nuns, or at least one, I guess, looked up when she saw the parachutes coming, and she said, "Look, angels are coming to rescue us." And all the rest of the nuns started screaming, "Angels are coming! Angels are coming!" And that's how I became an angel. Because it was so neat. And so the 11th Airborne Division, who, you know, was the big party above the 511 parachute. And so all the 11th Airborne and the 511 and everything, we're all angels now. I've been an angel for 60 years.
Oh, wow.
And never even had to die to do it.
Well, that's great.
That's pretty good, ain't it?
That's darn good, yeah. That wasn't the final combat that you were in, was it?
Oh, no. Hey, we kept on going.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I think it was a week or so after it happened before I found out anything about it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because after all, hey, I was trying to keep alive myself every day. I wasn't out bumming with people. When you're in combat, baby, I'll tell you one thing that I've written in one of my stories. Combat soldiers only know yesterday, today, and maybe tomorrow. That's the way it is in real combat. And so we never knew any dates or times. There was no scuttlebutt about this jump because it was made absolutely in total secrecy because of, you know, the Japs and this and that, you know, and there's always somebody that can leak a word, which would be bad. But every one of those 200 Japanese guarding the prison that were going to kill the prisoners, every one of them died. Everyone.
You continued in the Philippines, did you?
Oh yeah, we finally knocked that Genko line off.
Uh-huh.
See, all this happened after, the first island we took was Leyte
Mm-hmm.
in the southern Philippines. And then Manila and Luzon was north of us. But anyway, we had to finish up on Luzon, and so we kept on going through that Genko line, and there was a river there that was just awful. I think the river was named something like the Pasay River. It's just south of Manila. You can find it on a map. And that was really bad. And then it was a horrible fight to take the airport, you see, because we had jumped in on Luzon way south, and on Luzon, a place called Tagaytay Ridge, and then we fought all our way up, you know, and we were almost to Manila when this Los Baños thing went on. But like I said, it was a week or so before I even heard a word about it. But anyway, then going east from Manila was a great big airport, and can't think of its name right this minute, but it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the Japs, of course, as we were pushing, they left the southern edge of the airport, and they were over on the northern side, and they were shooting 40mm cannons at us, which was totally illegal, you know, and all the world's talking about fighting and this and that. you're not supposed to shoot anti-aircraft cannons at troops on the ground. You shoot them at airplanes. But we lost some wonderful guys there. My best friend, that we were going to be lifelong comrades, he was killed right beside me by the airport.
By those anti-aircraft guns?
Yeah, he was killed by one of the anti-aircraft guns. Yeah. His name was Wendell M. Judson. Judson. And he lived in Bowling Green, Ohio. And of course, at that time, I lived in Detroit. And we would have been lifetime buddies, you know. It's still sad. But
Yeah.
we were walking along the edge of the tarmac. I have to tell you this little quick story. We had two guys in the mortar platoon when they came in, and they both had the nickname Wink, because they were both real fast, you know. And I was kind of a leader there in the mortar platoon. Had a big mouth, you know, and haven't lost it yet. And, and anyway, we just could not have both of those guys going by the nickname of Wink in combat. We discovered that, you know. Anyway, I decided that Wink Lamb was the other guy. His name, that's L-A-M-B, Lamb, just like a little sheep. Anyway, we let Wink Lamb keep his nickname. And Judson, we took his Wink away from him. And we started calling him Judy, which is, we knew it was a girl's name, but it came from Judson, you know. We didn't want to call him Judd or anything, so we just called him Judy. And nothing sexual or anything about it. It was just, that's what came out. And we were going over to trade in his gun over to a armament camp that we knew was on the south side, and had moved in there. And we were walking along, and here come a Jeep running on this same road right alongside the tarmac. And the Japs started shooting that 40mm cannon at them. And of course, Judy and I jumped in this ditch, and it was a beautiful ditch. It was about this high, you know. And so we were doing it. And of course, we were just sitting in there. We knew they couldn't hit us. But this damn Jeep stopped right where we were, and they jumped in beside us, you know, or, you know, near us. And the Japs kept on shooting. I think they hit the Jeep, and then one of their rounds hit a telephone pole right by us. And of course the shell exploded. And a little teeny piece of shrapnel, maybe that big, went in Judy's right temple and out his left. And I was sitting right beside him. He was just like that. And of course, it was that particular hit on the telephone pole. You know, you don't think about these things when you're in combat. I was on my face in that ditch, but Judy wasn't. I looked up and I said, "Boy, that was kind of close, eh, Judy?" And he didn't say nothing. again. And I jumped up and laid him down. And I felt his pulse, it was still beating. I felt his heart, it was still beating. And I said, Judy, I'll be back. And I ran like hell screaming, you know, medic, medic, you know. And some guys were at that ammo place that we were going to trade Judy's gun. And they ran, and medic guy came with them. And he felt over Judy, and he said, he's gone. He's gone. But his heart was still beating when I felt it.
That sure must have been a tough one to take.
It was absolutely awful. You know, I had other people killed by me, you know. But Judy and I, we were such friends. And the fact that, you see, in the paratroops, it's all volunteers, you see? And so in our outfit, we had guys from all over the country. And the other, Wink Lamb, he comes from Washington. And he was my number 2 man on my mortar, by the way. And we still see each other whenever, he still comes to the reunions, yeah. Yeah, we saw each other in June this year. It was over in Reno, Nevada. But Judy and I were going to be wonderful friends. I was going to get him in the bakery business and everything, you know, because he didn't have any real fancy education either, of course.
Now your outfit took a lot of casualties over the year, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. I can tell you real easy. In New Guinea, we lost 10% of our people.
Mm-hmm.
On Leyte, we lost 40% of our people. You know, we were totally surrounded by Japs for a month because our job, we went and sat on a trail that the Japs used to go to up at the coast called Ormoc Bay in on Leyte, you know. And there was a big fight there. There was a fight out in the water between boats and also on shore. And the Japs were using this trail to go up. And you know, provision and ammo to the Japs fighting on shore, see? And that was our job, is to cut that off so Ormoc Bay could be captured by our troops. And we did our job, boy. We sat on a hill, and the plan, maybe you don't want to hear all this. Is that okay?
Sure. Go
I'm
ahead.
wandering away from loose
No,
now.
I'll keep you focused.
But the plan was for us to be surrounded, and although, you know, you can't go into combat with much food on you, you know. So the plan was that they're going to drop our, because it was all forest, you see, on this big hill that we cut. No way for a plane to land. So they threw some stuff in with parachutes, some ammos and things. And a lot of the food they just dropped, you know, out of the plane going by. But the plan wasn't worth a damn because the weather completely changed. It became cloudy and it rained on us every damn day. The planes could not find us. We were really scarce on ammo and food. In 1 month, I lost 25 pounds. And all the rest of the guys did too.
Now you hear a lot about the problems in the Bulge over in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
And very similar to that. Don't hear much about you being over in Leyte and all of the problems there.
Oh yeah, well, you know, For some reason, I got the idea when I was in the Army and still in combat and everything, because of letters written back and forth to the people, not all mine, but letters that some of our guys had, there was some reason that they, I don't know whether it was our commanding officer of the whole 511 or just what, but I think that was it. They didn't want to be in the newspaper.
Uh-huh.
They didn't want anybody knowing that we were over there fighting the Japanese.
One of the things you said reminds me of one of the comments, in Band of Brothers, somebody comes up to the officers and says, how did you like being rescued by Patton and, you were surrounded and everything else? And he said, well, we're paratroopers. We expect to be surrounded. Just pretty much what you said.
Yeah. And it was really funny, I had that feeling because maybe they didn't want the Pacific fighting to be a great big thing, although it also was.
Sure.
And maybe they thought it would hurt the negotiations in Europe or whatever. You could make about a million whatevers. But anyway, I just felt that they didn't want us to be known.
How many actual drops did you make, Dick? How many actual paratrooper parachute drops?
Oh, in combat?
Yeah. One?
Yeah, on Luzon, on Leyte, because of the forest, couldn't do it. Yeah, on New Guinea, no use to, because we went in on a boat, into this monster big river and bay and everything, and the Japs had already been moved way back into a forest. So don't use jumping in a forest to kill people, because they'll shoot you when you're hanging from the tree.
So you were in a lot of combat that didn't start out as dropping from the plane.
That's right, yeah. Oh, hell yeah. If you're gonna say, oh, I made a parachute jump and we fought like hell for 3 days and then we made another one, that doesn't work. They used the plane to get us from one island to another because they knew we couldn't swim with a mortar on my back.
How many islands were you?
Three.
Three different ones?
Yeah, Leyte, Mindoro, and Luzon.
Uh-huh.
But in Luzon, we lost over 50% of our guys. Mindoro was nothing. It was just a nothing to clean up an airport, that's all. But, well, there wasn't many Japs left around.
Was that pretty much when the war was...
Oh, it was coming down.
Getting down.
Oh, yeah, as a matter of fact, we had just cleaned up Manila. After the fighting on the big airport, then there was some more house-to-house fighting in Manila to get all the Japs out. And then the rest of them finally left Manila and ran north. And then a couple of companies of the 511 made a jump up there, and I forget the name of that. There was a mountain involved. Start with a T, I think. Anyway, I wasn't in that one either, and I wasn't in the Los Baños raid, I was about 7-8 miles away. But don't matter. It's part of my outfit.
But were you then, as the war was coming to an end?
Oh, yeah.
You were...
Yeah, I'll continue.
You were selected, were you not, to... You and some other people were selected for special missions?
Here's the thing. General MacArthur was run out of the Philippines. He was the head honcho in the Philippines before any war was on, okay? And of course the Japs took over, ran him off, and in Los Banos were many of General MacArthur's soldiers, you know, they were put in there. And so MacArthur run off and went on a boat and went to, I don't know where the hell, New Guinea?
No, he went to Australia.
Huh? Oh, did he go all the way to Australia?
Yeah.
I knew he was down there someplace. Anyway, New Guinea's right by Australia too. Anyway, he's the guy, there's pictures of him in a boat shaking his fist saying, "I shall return," or stuff like that, you know. So anyway, General MacArthur absolutely loved the 511 because we took the Philippines back for him. And so, we had just finished cleaning up Manila, and then my favorite president of all time, Harry Truman, dropped the bomb, and then a few days later dropped another one, just to prove to the Japs that the first one wasn't a fluke. And General MacArthur said, 511, get up to Okinawa now, because he wanted us to be first in Japan. And then we was in Okinawa. Oh, this would be something to be very interesting for you, because we were there in about the third day we were there, this horrible, I don't know what the right name of it is, but it was, I would say, a typhoon, or like the things that just went through Florida here very recently, hurricanes or whatever. Anyway, a real horrible one came through, and I had taken up residence in a little teeny slip trench that some Jap had. It wasn't very big. It was a little Jap. Anyway, I was in there trying to keep out of the wind, you know, and I had a carbine, you know, for a rifle, much smaller than a M1, you know, that the rifle troops had. But I had to carry 50 pounds of other stuff, you know. A bipod on a mortar weighs 46.5 pounds. And then I carried the sight and a rifle and a 6-shooter and a little food that I could get. All that on top of, you know, the regular stuff that a rifleman carries, you know. So I was pretty well loaded most of the time. Anyway.
Were all those things in with you when you were in the trench?
Huh?
Were all those things with you when you were in the trench?
No. No, the mortar wasn't, see.
Oh, okay.
See, because we flew up there.
Oh.
And so then we just put that stuff down, and I think we actually left them. I know I didn't have anything to do with moving the mortar from Okinawa, because here's what happened. Oh, I wanted to tell you. That night in the storm, the wind was so horrible, I kept down more in that little teeny trench, and my carbine got pushed up to the top, and the wind blew it away. Now you think of a wind blowing a rifle. Now this is small, but it only weighed like 4.5, 5 pounds, I think. I think a carbine, I mean a M1, I think it weighs between 8 or 9 pounds, something like that. Anyway, I blew that thing away. We looked for it the next morning and couldn't find it. I didn't care though, I had my 6-shooter. Anyway, the storm, you know, it went away, you know, overnight, you know.
Did you go from Okinawa to Japan?
Huh?
Did you go from Okinawa into Japan? Did you fly?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's what I was going to tell you. A couple more days.
Mm-hmm.
Then our captain of headquarters company, 3rd Battalion, came to me. His name was Coulter, was his last name. And I never knew his first name. He was a replacement for our Captain Ashford that was ran away. And he pulled some bad things on Leyte, and they shoved Ashford back to New Guinea and put this other Captain Coulter in there. Anyway, Coulter came to me, and our conversation went, he said, Laws, get 15 men together. You're going to take an airplane ride tomorrow. I said, oh yeah? Where am I going? He said, Japan. I said, no kidding. What am I going to do there? And he says, oh, it's nothing. You're just going to guard a portable radar outfit, and then you sleep overnight, and then the next day the rest of the whole regiment will come flying in, bearing on that radar, because we don't want to trust the Japs' radar. So I says, oh, discard that and then set it up the next day and you guys will come in, right? Yeah. Okay, what time I'm taking off? He says 800 hours tomorrow. So I said, okay. So I went over to the mortar platoon. I picked out 15 guys to go. And so there was 16 of us, and then there was the squad for the airplane, of course, I don't know, 3 or 4 guys, and the group of people for the radar. Anyway, there was 26 of us on the plane when we took off, and also when we landed. We didn't lose any. Anyway, it was a nothing flight over. And we landed at Sugi Airport, which is right by Yokohama, which is on the south side of Tokyo Bay. And then Tokyo is on the north side of Tokyo Bay. And we pulled in there, and of course the pilots went up to the command tower on this Atsugi. That's spelled A-T-S-U-G-I, in case you're writing it down, Atsugi Airport. Anyway, we went there, and he shut the engine off and everything. And then I stood up and I says to my guys especially, although the other people were there too, the cotton air and the fuselage, you know. And so I said to my guys, listen, I'm going out the door. I'm shutting the door from the other side. Nobody opens this door from the inside. If I want you guys out there with me, I will open the door from the outside. The guys looked at me and they all nodded. So I did, I went out. Oh, and I also told them, if I have any trouble, don't worry about me. Holler at the pilot, get the hell out. That's what I told my guy. Anyway, I went out, and of course, when I hit the ground, I was the first man in Japan. But that was far from my head at the time, because out of the command tower come these 2 Jap officers, full dressed like me here, with their samurai swords and all. And the 2 of them walked up to me, and of course I was only a staff sergeant, so I saluted them. And one of them said, welcome to Pond. That might have been all the English he had, I don't know. Because then I said, tonight we're going to sleep around this plane. Nobody come near us. Tomorrow we're going to put up a radar, and tomorrow many will come. And I did that a couple of times. Many will come. And I had pointed, towards Okinawa. They got the idea all right. Anyway, then the one that spoke before, he says, welcome to pond again. And I saluted them, and they turned around and went back in the tower. So it was nothing, just like old Captain said. But all of a sudden then, out of the tower came 50 Japs. Count them, 50 of them, and they lined up on the grass, never put a foot on the black tarmac, on the grass, they lined up. They all had their rifles and everything. They all looking at me, and I'm looking at them. I'm out there all by myself. And somebody gave an order, and it wasn't shoot them. I think it was about face. Because they all spun around and put their backs to us. And I went, because I knew that meant no trouble from us. And they didn't give us any trouble. They changed twice overnight, and they stood there as a guard for us. And me and my guys slept around the plane. There were 16 of us. And so we put 8 hours in, 2 on, and the rest sleeping.
How did you get on to the Missouri? Didn't you?
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, you weren't on the Missouri?
Oh, no.
I thought you were an honor guard for.
No, what happened with that, it was, again, a couple days more, like I told you, combat soldiers don't know nothing but yesterday, today, and maybe tomorrow. Anyway, we had no trouble with the Japs at all. Our whole company, in fact, Headquarters Company 3rd Battalion, they all flew in the next day, and we took over a Jap barracks, that was by the airport there. And we had nothing to do, and so I was roaming around a little, and this at Sui Airport where we went in, it's right by the water of Tokyo Bay. So I was out and I walked on the dock. And I went way out to the dock because I was always a fisherman and stuff, when I was a kid. And I went out to the end of the dock and I sat down, just goofing around, And all of a sudden, here comes all these big boats come in Tokyo Bay. And they come in and anchored, and I got the biggest laugh of my life, or one of the biggest, because after they anchored and they were all sitting there, all these fancy Japs came, I guess they came from Yokosuka or Tokyo, one or the other. They're all lined up on the bay. And they came in these power boats. They looked like 30, 40 footers, open. And then they pulled up by this big battleship, and the stairway to that, going up to the deck, was like about this steep, and it was only about that wide. And I laughed my head off because of them fancy Japs, and I could see them, from where I was sitting on the dock. A lot of them had on these black tall hats, like Abraham Lincoln wore and like that, and scarves on, and you could see the white scarf on a black everything else, Anyway, I laughed my head off because them guys, every one of them fought their way up to the deck. It was no easy trail.
When did you get involved with General MacArthur? You said you had
Oh,
some stories
well,
about him.
After that happened, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then, and of course MacArthur was on the boat, see?
Yeah.
But me and him got to be buddies because then we had other barracks that we moved into. That, you know, the Japs had barracks all over the place. And General MacArthur took up headquarters there, see? And near Atsugi Air Base. And they put me on his honor guard. I was on about 3 weeks. And the thing is that the, am I still in focus?
You're all right. You're all right. No, go ahead.
Anyway, you know, I would post my guys. I had about 12 or 15 guys all the time, every day. And I would post them around the barracks building where MacArthur had his office. And then, of course, once they were posted, I didn't have nothing to do. They just stood there for a couple hours, you know. And so I just stand outside of MacArthur's office as a kind of a personal guard thing. And he'd call me in, we'd shoot the bull. And he'd ask me all kind of stuff like you're doing about taking the Philippines back for him. And he was so happy with us and all kind of stuff like that, you know. Anyway, we would have been together longer, I guess, but all of a sudden I got notice that I had enough points to go home. And MacArthur heard about it too. And one day I, you know, had posted my troops around, and he says, "Laws, come on in my office a minute. I want to talk to you. I want you to do me a favor." I said, "Oh, anything for you, General." And what are you laughing at? Anyway, he says, you see them two rifles leaning against that wall?" I said, "Yes, sir." "You see that samurai sword right beside it?" "Yes, sir." He says, "The favor I want you to do me is take the 3 of those pieces home with you, because I hear you have enough points to go home." And he says, "I want you to keep them for the rest of your life." I said, "Yes, sir." And if you come over to my house, in my library is one of those rifles and the samurai sword. There's also another samurai sword that I picked up by shooting a Jap. What the hell was that? Oh, that was on Leyte. And the other rifle I still have, but it's in the possession of my youngest son, who became a Marine right out of high school. And because of that, I trust him with this other rifle. He lives in Northern California, where he and I built his house in 1995.
Now you have enough points, and I'm sure some of those things that you're wearing here contributed to those points. Tell me what are they? Can you tell me what they are?
Probably not.
Oh, sure you can.
Hey, come on, it's 60
Oh,
years.
you got
This
a
suit
rifle?
is 60 years old, man. 61 or more, actually.
Well, I know the paratrooper
Well,
and the
oh yeah,
rifleman. Yeah,
this is not my original badge, but it is a paratrooper badge, and this is a real background. You see, there's blue for sky, white for clouds, and green for the grass we hope to land on. This is the parachute badge background only for the 511. Okay,
Oh.
every outfit that's in the paratrooper has their own background. See, and so that's what ours was. It was the blue sky and the white clouds and green grass to land on. We hope. Anyway, this one here is a star. Yeah, this is a Bronze Star badge. Metal thing, and I got this for a real busy day running my mortars and stuff, and I ran the whole mortar platoon the last, well, from way before the Los Banos thing. I was running the mortar platoon when I jumped on the Tagatai Ridge. I was number 8 in command of the mortar platoon. And all of a sudden, our 2 officers were gone, 1 dead and 1 wounded. And any 5-stripe sergeants above me, they were all gone. And I was in charge of the mortar platoon. And guess how many guns we had?
1.
1, mine. The other 3 were abandoned as we lost the crews. I told you we lost a lot of people on Luzon. That just gives you an idea. But anyway, I was going to the nighttime, you know, the Lieutenant Colonel Lottie, you know, at night after the fighting settled down, you know, the captains and stuff and special people would get together with Colonel Lottie and decide what we're going to do tomorrow, you know. And I was there taking the place of 2 lieutenants. Anyway, where was I?
Well, what are your other ones?
Yeah. Well, this was
The bronze.
It was. I killed a whole bunch of Japs one day, and so that's I don't know. What's this? I don't.
Well,
I don't know.
that's
This could be I think a victory medal or something.
Yeah. Okay. I think you listed them for me anyhow in the other biographical information. So don't worry about it.
Oh well, I'll tell you what. They're on my
Yeah.
My discharge papers.
Okay.
They're all listed on
All right.
there. Yeah. In 2 places that jumps from one to the other.
Okay. I can
Yeah.
get it from there. Thank
And
you.
see some of the, now this one is kind of special. This came from the Philippine government
Mm.
directly to my house
Oh.
after I was out of service. But that is, you see, it took the Filipinos, oh hell, I think it was a year after I was out that I got this. And they wanted everybody to have this Filipino Liberation Medal, and it says, for the liberation of the Philippines.
Mm.
And,
Oh.
how'd you do that, Dick, you
Oh.
dummy? Okay,
Okay.
tomorrow. Anyway, they sent it to me. And so anyway, and then of course this is a
Rifleman.
rifle something badge.
Yeah. Familiar with it.
Marksman,
Huh?
marksman.
No.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's what it is. I think it's a rifle marksman's badge or something like that. I just got a new one that's about that long only. A fellow that I met who's the grandson of my lieutenant that was wounded and shipped out. His grandson contacted me about 2 years ago. He tracked me down.
Hmm?
I can't believe it. He's a very smart young fella. He's a lawyer, and he's also a lieutenant in the Army Reserves. And he tracked me down, and
Probably through the internet. There's a lot of ways of tracking people.
that could
Yeah.
be. Well, no, I don't. Well, yeah, I guess I did have my internet going by
Well,
at
not
that
yours,
time.
but the internet. They have a lot of information about
Oh.
people who've been in the service and different
Oh, is
units.
that right?
Yeah.
Well, I never fooled with it.
Mhm.
Anyway, he tracked me down. Now we're friends.
Now, when you got out of the service, you went. Did you go back into bakery?
Right away.
Uh-huh.
They called me every day. Want to know when I go to work?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and
You retired from there?
oh
From
no,
the bakery, or
no,
did you go somewhere else?
buddy, I've been ripped off so much in my life you can't believe it. I was on. See, the bakery route that I had before I went in service was Huntington Woods and Berkeley, which is the kind of north of Detroit area kind of thing. And the house I had bought my mom and dad was just short of being 8 Mile Road, see? Greedy runs north and south, and 8 Mile and 7 Mile run east and west. And it was only like 2 blocks from 8 Mile, so it was almost out of Detroit,
Right.
see? So it was really neat. And of course, I didn't have that house when I was doing I was living in rented houses with my family, you know, when I doing that. Anyway, when I come back, a nice young fella who had a family had taken over that territory, you see. And so the guy, his name was Dick Sager, and real great guy. He had been my Allry Bakery commander. In fact, he's one of the guys that bought half of that truck for me when I was just got out of school in '41. But anyway, Dick Sager says, listen, I know where there's a fantastic amount of building going on, and it's going to continue for the next 10 years. So I want you to go and take over Allyn Park and Lincoln Park, and you'll have all the customers you want for the rest of your life. Well, that worked out really great, because Allyn Park grew like a weed, and Lincoln Park and all that. So anyway, I took, I went right back in the bakery business, and it kind of tells about it in that Allry
Yes. Okay.
story that I gave you, because I wrote that for Bob Allry's wife a long time later. And I got married, had 6 kids, family, and all like that. And then I moved into Allyn Park, you know, so I wouldn't have so much driving to do. And my wife and I lived in that house that I had bought my parents for the first 6 months of our marriage. And then when she got pregnant there, well, she wanted to have her own house, so then I bought the house in Allyn Park. And then, to make it kind of short, I went through a real bad period of time. It was in 1958, 1959, there were a horrible amount of strikes going on. And you know, Allyn Park and Lincoln Park, 90% of the people that lived there were in the automobile business because they were around all these big factories. And so and on a bakery route, you know, you got your route book and people have credit with you, you see, and they pay, you know, according to their pay schedule from the husband. You know, a lot of them would pay every 2 weeks or even once a month, you know, and stuff like that, some every week. And of course, a lot of it was cash too. And because every day I had to pay my bill at Aubrey Bakery for the day before. Yeah, minus my discount, you know. Anyway, my bank account was going downhill because of all, you know, these 3-month strikes and things going on. It was awful. So I told my wife, and at that time I had 4 kids. And I told my wife, I said, I am not going to go through this again. I don't think I can stay on this bakery route the rest of my life, you know. I mean, someday I'm going to get tired. And so I did some advanced preparation. I went ahead and checked. I had bought some land, a lot of land. I had 2 residential lots and 3 commercial lots in a city in Florida called Cape Coral, which is across the Caloosahatchee River from Fort Myers, Florida. And I bought them partially as an investment, but also to use, you know. And so I told my wife, I said, you know, I ain't gonna put up with this crap anymore. We have that land in Florida, and so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get a job, and then we'll decide where we're gonna live there actually, and all that. So the first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna get a job. And I had heard that wherever there's a city growing, then the post office has to get into it. So I bought a ticket and I flew down to Fort Myers and I passed the test with flying colors. I ain't bragging. The head guy at the post office where I took the test in Fort Myers, you see, across the river from Cape Coral, and I had applied to be in Cape Coral. The guy told me, he said, you come anytime and you absolutely will have a job with us, and it will be in Cape Coral where you specified.
How long did you stay with the post office?
I never did.
Oh, you never did?
No.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, who's telling this story?
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, doggone it, I sold my beautiful brick cottage 8 miles from where I live now. It was on Bass Lake, right by Patterson Lake. You might have heard of Patterson Lake. Bass Lake's name is changed now to some other name because there's about 35 Bass Lakes in Michigan, and they changed the name of that one. Anyway, I sold my cottage and got cash for that. Was in the process of the final words on selling my house. And I got word from Maurice, you ain't gonna quit. We're gonna make you into a supervisor. John Smaltz came to me and told me that. He was the head honcho at that time. And I had always wanted to be a supervisor at Allyn, you know. And so Johnny had me go over to his house. If that name is familiar, John Smoltz, that's S-M-O-L-T-Z, who is a pitcher for the Atlanta Braves, is a grandson of the John Smoltz that stopped me from going to Florida. Believe that or not. That's a coinky dinky, eh? Anyway, John had me over to his house one time, and we had a long talk. And so I said, well, my house is gone. The people, you know, they want it. And so I said, but I do know where there's a house right there in Elm Park that I can rent for a year. And I will rent it for a year. But then, you see, I have to make a decision. I'll guarantee you a year. And after the year, then if I like being a supervisor as much as I think I will, then I'll stay. Otherwise, we'll just go to Florida a year later. Because I have to make the time right because of my kids, you know. I think the oldest one at that time was like 9 or 10, you know, at the 4 kids there. And it wouldn't bother them to move at that age, but after they become older, it would be a problem, you see. So anyway, John said, okay. And so I moved out in the rented house and went to work as a supervisor. I did fantastic things for them and made several great inventions for them. And always on the day before Christmas morning, you know, of course the supervisors are always there to get the men out on the street, you know, make sure everything's going smooth. And then on Christmas morning, we always had a breakfast meeting at Johnny Schmaltz's house. And at that Christmas morning breakfast, it was almost a year that I had been there as the supervisor. And John Schmaltz announced at the meeting where all the supervisors were there having this fancy breakfast. He says, I got word for everybody. From now on, Dick Laws is my number 2 man. And all the guys clapped. I was really surprised. And the guy who was my personal supervisor all the time that I had a bakery route for like 18 years after the war, he was clapping right along with the rest of them. I guess Johnny had told him before, you know, because he was the number 2 man for John then. But anyway, I did make some good things. Anyway, I didn't go to Florida, I stayed here, and that lasted for 10 years. In January the 4th, 1970, Bob Allry called me in and fired me. But of course, I knew it was coming because in 1968 and 67, really, 7 and 8, the women in this country went to work. Check it. And by God, we could not we used to go down, I used to solicit customers for my guys and everything, you know. And you know, there'd always be a door open, but not after the women went to work. And of course, how are you gonna sell baked goods at the door if there's no women there to open the door? So that was the end of my bakery trip, but I knew it was coming. So on my vacation, my 3-week paid vacation by Oury Bakery, I spent 1 week of that in an insurance training school. And I had even made 3 sales working at night after that, before I got fired off. And then the year after that, you know, I sold strictly insurance for a year. And I said, Dick, this is not the best thing for these people. But it's what I was taught in the school, which of course was run by an insurance company. But I am one of the very first men in Michigan who decided I will never sell another cash value policy. I will only sell term insurance and get the people, because term insurance is cheaper than cash value insurance, I'll have them invest the difference. And so just before I made that public, I had got myself a security license, and then I could do both sides, and my people loved me. I had more than 435 clients when I got rid of my business. End of story.
Great story. Great story. What did you do with the property in Florida?
Oh, I sold it.
Oh, you sold it?
Yeah. At about triple what I paid for it.
Well, hey, that's always good.
That was really wonderful, because I had bought, you know, are you familiar with that area?
Yeah, oh yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, Cape Coral, of course, Cape is a point, and the river wiggles there around it. And so I bought a residential lot, and there were fancy canals and everything all through this thing, you know, and still are. So I bought one lot there, residential, and one lot over here, and I bought 3 lots starting at a corner lot, and then the 2 lots next to it. So then I had a corner, you see, right downtown Cape Coral. And the biggest bank in Cape Coral right now is on those 3 lots.
Oh, wow, great.
And of course, I sold the others individually to private people.
Look, I appreciate you coming down today, and I appreciate your time.
I'm a big bull
No,
talker.
you have quite a history, and it needs to be told, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to get this
Great.
so that people can hear about this in 10
Well,
or
that's
20
why
or 50
I
years.
give my Army stories. See, I've written 4 stories.
Yes,
in all been published. We have a quarterly magazine.
And before you leave, I'd like to take some still shots of you right here. Is that okay?
Okay, I'll promise to hold still.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
My pleasure. I always like shooting the bill.